Hello, friends, and welcome to your midweek edition of the Kings of Anglia podcast. It's Thursday morning. The birds outside Heath Towers are singing. Things are going pretty good. Ipswich Town are smashing League One to bits under Kieran McKenna, and I am back in the host chair, Mark Heath. And with me, I'm very pleased to say, three of my fellow Kings. And we can only start in one direction today. Speaking of smashing things to pieces, Stuart Watson stepped in for me the last three games. And you did a bang tidy job, Watson. This is simply unacceptable. When I'm away, you're meant to make a monkey's ass of things. As it stands, I'm clearly expendable. What have you got to say for yourself?
Well, I've done my John McGrill stint. I was never going to turn down a brand that I know and love and have been with for such a long period of time. Needs must. I've come in. I've overseen it was a 3-game stint in the end, wasn't it? We thought it was going to be one. I didn't know. I was just waiting to get the call from you to tell me when I would slide back into this chair. So 3 games. I think I've managed to sail the ship through some rocky waters, and now I hand back the reins to the man that knows what he's doing.
How would you evaluate in a true sporting cliche style your 3-game spell? Because I mean, clearly coming in for me, some big shoes to fill. It's like picking up Shakespeare's quill or writing a symphony after Beethoven. So a lot of pressure on your shoulders. How did you feel about it?
Difficult circumstances. Obviously, the third game we had a real injury crisis. It was down to just me and Ross, really, bare bones. So in the circumstances, I thought it was a solid job. Hopefully, not for me to say.
I thought you did a tremendous job. It means that every single one of the Kings has now hosted the show at one time or other. We are, in Kieran McKenna's words, adaptable. We're like water. And everyone can step up and do a job when it's needed. So thank you, Stuart. You did a superb job, and it's tremendous to see that in your locker. It showed a different side of yourself, if you don't mind me saying. So some would say power crazed at times, but also...
Some might.
Yeah. Yeah, I liked it. It was excellent.
It's just as well, if I'm honest, because Andy needed a really good talking to over the trainers. And, you're welcome, because the trainers came back and so have the wins.
And you've given me the perfect segue there into your friend and compadre, Andy Hutch Hogan Warren. These trainers are becoming a thing. You know, back in the day when we were arguing about whether honey badger was a thing, before it definitely was a thing, and then it definitely wasn't a thing. These trainers are definitely now a thing, and with that thing, Hutchie, comes pressure as to when you wear them and who you tell you're wearing them, etc. on social media. I noted after the game, which clearly we're going to get onto in due course, a 2-0 win at AFC Wimbledon. Stu tweeted to say he can confirm you were wearing the trainers, and that got more likes and reaction than the actual game itself. So do you now feel the pressure of this thing upon your feet, Hutchie?
I got messages throughout the day on Tuesday. I got one saying, "Just seen you at Liverpool Street. Glad to see you're wearing the shoes."
What?
Someone stopped me outside Tesco's in Foxhall Road in Ipswich the other day and said, "Make sure you're wearing the shoes Tuesday." They're a thing. They are a thing, but it does come with pressure. They're not going to work forever.
No.
But what I hope is that they've given Ipswich the springboard to launch a genuine bid at promotion from this point, and that's what I hope. They're not going to win every game. We know that there's bumps along the way, but what they have done is hopefully, with a little bit of help from Kieran McKenna and some decent football, ignited something. It's a movement, and that's all I can say. Really, I'm proud to be a part of it.
A movement on your feet. I also note there appears to be something of a lucky thing off between you and our columnist Carl Fuller, who's claiming responsibility for several of the wins because of his lucky Marcus Stewart socks. I think he's a win behind you, though, in the lucky thing ratio. You've done all 4, haven't you, in your trainers? So you're very much leading that race at the moment. And we'll get on to later on, of course, Sheffield Wednesday. And perhaps, I don't know if you've thought sartorially yet, Hutchie, as to what you may sport. But we'll talk about that later. And, of course, the final wheel on the KOA bus, but in no way the least of this 4. Roscoe, the young prospect, the hairy young man, Ross Halls.
I don't know what to say after that. Hairy young man, yes, I am.
All factually correct.
Yeah, pretty much.
How are you?
Yeah, I am very well, thank you. It was good to see us win again. Kieran McKenna, Barmy Army, Wes Burns is a beautiful man. That is all I have to say.
He is. let's jump straight into that then, shall we, boys? Ipswich Town have made it 4 out of 5 under Kieran McKenna at AFC Wimbledon. A tough game on Tuesday night at Plough Lane. I'm going to start this by saying 3 words to you, and I want you to say what you think by way of 3 words back to me. Stuart Watson, Wesley James Burns.
Man in form.
What? Hutchie
Hits it hard.
and Roscoe.
Beautiful hairy man.
Of course, Wes Burns was the standout on Burns night. It was written, etc., etc. But yeah, a good win. He got 2 goals. Stewie, kick us off with your thoughts on this game.
Much like last weekend's game against Accrington, Ipswich didn't have it their own way. There were times where it was a little bit nervy, but they found a way to get the job done. And that is, how many times do we hear in football, win when you're not particularly bang at it is the sign of a successful side. And these last couple of games, I think, are a marker of that. They were exceptional at Gillingham when they won 4-0, but we knew that it doesn't always go that way, where you get early goals and everything comes together. Kieran McKenna recognised that himself after that game. Sometimes you have to be able to dig in adversity when you go behind in games, when things are going against you, and that's what's happened. Couple of major turning points in both of those games. We talked about the Accrington game being the Walton save at one end, straight up there, every end 1-1. Could have been a completely different game. Same happened again on Tuesday night when Luke Wolfenden blocks on the line. We thought it hit the post on the night. It turns out it hit Christian Walton's flailing heel. And Ipswich go on to win through those 2 Wes Burns goals. So when things like that are starting to go your way, it all adds to this feeling of maybe, just maybe, the footballing gods, the momentum, whatever it is kind of with us at this moment in time. So we shall see. Now on to a very big one at Hillsborough next on Saturday, of course.
Yeah, momentum with us, unlike Bill Withers, Stewie.
Yeah, I've got an apology to make there, haven't I? Bill Withers is actually no longer with us. So sincere apologies to the Withers family. Unintentional, that one. R.I.P. Bill.
Absolutely. Moving back to Tuesday night at Plough Lane, Hutchie, away from sadly no longer with us, Bill Withers. I want to take you back pre-kickoff. Clearly, there was the Morsy news come in, and then the team sheet came out, and there was a little bit of gnashing of teeth amongst the ITFC community when you see Caden Jackson starting and Macaulay Bonne on the bench. What did you make of the starting 11?
Macaulay Bonne to the bench didn't shock me. If anything, I think he's due a rest. We know he starts pretty much every game for Ipswich. He's due a rest at some point. Caden Jackson's obviously a surprise coming into the side. I think that's a first league start for him since last April, the best part of a year. So a surprise to see him come in, and he's not done the business when he's started games previously. So it was a surprise, but I don't think giving Macaulay Bonne a rest is a bad idea. He came on and made a goal in his 10 minutes. I think it could really rejuvenate him.
What did you make of the game as a whole, Hutchie?
It's much as I think Stu summed it up pretty roundly there. Winning when not at your best, weathering the storm when you need to, scoring when you get the real chance to score. 2 pretty similar goals from a man who scores goals from that position on the pitch. That's his little 15, 20-yard box area to thump the ball in. So yeah, it's another win. Just doing what you need to do to win. And keeping clean sheets is the big one for me, because they look really organised and really solid with that back three. It's really working for them. And that's giving them the platform to win these games where they're not playing very well and not making chances for themselves. Because if you're already 2-0 down by the time Wes Burns gets one of those opportunities, then it's no good, is it?
Rossi, in game day, post-game, which is always a joy to watch after a win midweek, everyone's so happy. A lot of the sentiment was, this is a game under Paul Cook or Paul Lambert that would either have finished 0-0 at best, or more likely we would have lost. Is that a sentiment you would agree with?
Yeah, because the first half was a very forgettable affair, I'll have to say. It was cold, nothing really happens. Wimbledon were there for the taking, really, but we just I don't know, just couldn't get in front. And McKenna said it was a mixed bag. I thought it was. We won the game ugly, and that's what I like. I'm liking that we're winning these games ugly. And as you said, under Paul Lambert, under Paul Cook, this game would have ended a nice 0-0, or the other side would have got a scrappy goal, and then we'll be going up away, very unhappy. But no, times are changing again under McKenna, and that's what we like to see. Winning ugly, and that is what Town are finally doing, just getting those wins over the board.
Yeah, I wouldn't say this was ugly in the Accrington sense of ugly. It was more frustrating, I would say. That first half, Ipswich had a lot of the ball, but didn't really. We were back to kind of lots of possession, but not really having that cutting edge at the end of it. There was that the final ball wasn't there. They kind of got funneled wide quite a lot, and it was back to being a little bit predictable. And Wimbledon were able to kind of just be organised, and it was hard to see. Wimbledon never looked like scoring in a month of Sundays. I think Andy tweeted that at half time, and people sort of told him not to tempt fate. But Wimbledon were without Woodyard, who's their influential midfielder, who's injured. Their top goal scorer, Ollie Palmer, had just been sold to Wrexham. They looked pretty toothless, but as Ross says, the game was there for the taking. And I think McKenna had that conversation at half time, but he wanted them to control. He wanted the possession to be in more dangerous areas. He wanted them to take more risks. And that happened in the second half. But by McKenna's admittance, they then, by taking those risks, they lost a bit of the control of the game. And became a little bit more ragged at the back. And there was a 10-15 minute spill at the start of that second half where suddenly Wimbledon got the crowd on side, and Ipswich had to sort of, I wouldn't say ride a storm, but ride a couple of awkward moments. Obviously, that Walton save was one. But eventually you hope that quality, the greater quality that Ipswich have, shines through in moments, and that's what happened with both of the goals. Wes Burns gets all of the headlines, of course, but two fantastic assists as well. Jackson involved in the build-up for the first with a driving run up the left. Norwood does really well to shield the ball in midfield and lay it on a plate. And the second one, as Andy's references, is an unbelievable cross-field ball from Macaulay Bond. So those moments of quality that we're seeing from Ipswich, that we all knew was in this squad, are starting to. We need them to count on a regular basis, be it Bursant Salina's fantastic through ball against Accrington, or those sort of moments, class moments from players that really on paper should be too good for this level, need to start making the difference regularly, and they are at the moment, and that's good.
Hutchie, we've seen several times under Paul Cook that this Ipswich Town team is capable of winning big and tearing teams apart, but equally they were maddeningly inconsistent. Under McKenna, they seem to have an extra spring in their step, don't they? They've kind of an extra level of confidence. When you read, and obviously you speak to the players after the game, to a man, they're saying how much they're loving things under McKenna. It's really noticeable, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's genuine as well. That you do get that impression from every single one of them that they're really enjoying this. Spring in the step is the right expression, I think, and it's the consistency that they've managed to play with. That there aren't supreme kind of highs and lows with this team. That it's built on something that appears to be quite solid. That they haven't always fully clicked in an attacking sense in games. Certainly, like Accrington, obviously this game, Bolton they didn't, but in all of them they looked pretty solid at the back and played with principles. So in terms of kind of installing a we're not talking systems, are we? We're talking kind of installing kind of ideologies almost. That's happening, and hopefully that the real quality can continue to grow with it, because we have seen that as well. And like Stu says, the big moments are coming, and they've just got to make them all count.
Stewie, obviously I've joked about McKenna being dull, and he is very kind of on the level, isn't he? But when you speak to him after games, and fans obviously watch interviews with him and stuff, he does seem to be a guy that when he speaks, you get the impression that people listen. He's got that kind of understated authority, hasn't he? If you know what I mean. Which I think as a player or anyone kind of connected with him, you can't help but kind of be swept along with.
Yeah, I think that's bang on. I think when he talks, you engage with what he's saying. I think there's some managers that after a while, I'm sure it just becomes a bit of a noise. We found that as fans, as people just listening in from the outside, that after a while it doesn't really mean anything. And I'm sure that is the case for players in the dressing room. He's considered. I think he puts a lot of thought into what he's saying, and therefore we put a lot of thought into dissecting what he says. There was a little joke in there as well. You say he's quite sort of straight, but I imagine the more we get to know him, I think he's someone that will probably see a bit of his personality show a little bit more. I said to him, 4 wins from 5, Kieran. You start to senior management couldn't have gone much better. And there was a big smile, and he said, "Well, 5 wins from 5 might have been better." But I like him. He's just completely different. You think we've had over the years, we've had some big personalities in Mick McCarthy, Paul Cook, Paul Lambert. You can go on, and he's different and refreshingly different. And Andy's right. You can tell it's genuine warmth from the players at the moment. I will add the slight caveat that I've heard this genuine warmth from players before towards managers in the early days of the honeymoon period, because they're winning, and when they're winning and they're playing well, the players always love it, and then the tune can change further down the line. But touch wood, I'm hopeful that this is a little bit. There's a bit more substance behind this over the long term. Hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned winning there. Traditionally, when Town change managers, they don't win. So this is a very pleasant surprise indeed. Roscoe, excuse me. Obviously, Sam Morsy was given the news before the game on Tuesday, which meant that we saw a starting midfield that we've not seen before. They've probably never played together, and it probably was not planned at all. But Tom Carroll and Tyree Simpson played in midfield. How did you think they did?
Better than I thought, because I thought that is a very lightweight midfield. Baxter and Carroll as well. Carroll, who really hasn't had many minutes since he joined the club. Unfortunately, has had a few injuries, but I thought they did okay against the Wimbledon side. I think if they had that Woodyard in midfield, it may have been a bigger test for them. But I thought they were pretty okay. Still, no doubt it was. Morsy was a big miss, because he will always be. He's that leader. Once again, quoted Andy Warren, he's the chief. What did you say again, Andy?
Scrapper in chief.
Scrapper in chief. My blank straight away there. So you sort of lose that a little bit with Morsy, because he'll be fighting for every ball. I'm not saying Backerson and Carroll didn't do that, but that's not really part of their game. I think Backerson's more laid back sort of way. He's no, I think they did okay in this game, but going forward, we shall see if Sheffield Wednesday will be a different task without Morsy again.
It is Backinson, is it, Stu?
Still to be officially confirmed. That's what Andy Warren has got strong feelings on this, so that's what we're going with.
Backinson. To me, that sounds Backinson sounds like a Cockney giving like parking advice. Keep coming back in, son. That's right. Yeah. Yeah,
let's go with that.
Yeah.
Excellent. What did you make of Backinson on Tuesday night, Hutchie?
Similar feelings to Ross, really, on that. I think they did okay. I think Tom Carroll, particularly against Accrington, that was a tough ask for him, sort of coming in at the last minute to play a role that they weren't expecting him to have to play, and he did it there. I think he was added a level of composure in this game at times. Backinson saw flashes of what he can do, won the ball back a few times, a couple of nice little through balls, but they, like Ross said, I don't think they had the same effect that Morsy and Evans, even as kind of a bit of a well-oiled machine, would have had on that game. Midfield, the centre of midfield wasn't a strength in particular, I didn't think, for Ipswich in this game. That's why a lot of it ended up going down the flanks. And I think probably why Aluko and Norwood didn't get into the game as much as they could have done through the middle, because so much of it was kind of going wide, but they did it. They did okay. They won. They helped out in the defensive effort. They made that solid base for Ipswich, and there's some things to be encouraged about with Backinson. I don't think they would have expected him to play even in this game. He obviously came onto the bench very last minute against Accrington, and I very much doubt there was any thought whatsoever that he would have started against Wimbledon. But considering that, I think they did okay.
I think you lose a bit of forward thrust with Morsy in midfield. I think it becomes you're back to having sort of two sitters, or certainly the natural game of Carroll and Backinson is to kind of sit in front of the back three, receive it off the back three, technical, tidy passers of the ball. But Morsy, especially since McKenna's arrived, has kind of had this license to get forward a bit more. And I think they provide a bit more lateral movement instead of sort of him and Evans sitting side by side. You've seen the two of them sort of go a bit more vertical at times, and Morsy has that ability to keep the opposition second guessing. It's not always going to go wide, as was often the case before. He's someone that can drive it and carry it up the pitch a little bit more. And Backinson did join the attack, but more in the sort of second, third phases of play. And I think Ross is right. I think they came through this game fine with those two, but I think there'll be other games, notably Hillsborough on Saturday, who we'll talk about in a bit more depth later. I'm sure that will be those are sort of games where you miss not only Morsy's grit and his leadership as a captain, but also that sort of forward thrust that he's added sort of through the centre of the park, some of that sort of central penetration that he's brought to the side.
Stu, clearly we're sitting here, it's January transfer window, silly season. What if anything can we read into this kind of sudden re-emergence of Caden Jackson, who's been in the wilderness and then started making ventures? Now he's starting. When we talked at the start of the month, he was one of the ones we all kind of went, well, if people are going to leave, he's the sort of player that you expect to see leave. Is there anything we can read into KJ suddenly making a reappearance?
Yeah, it's a massive surprise, no doubt about it, to suddenly see him jump into the starting lineup. It's his first league start of the season. It's his first league start since that 3-0 defeat at Northampton back in April last year. I have got the feeling, and I think we've said this a couple of times on the pod, that McKenna's quite liked him, his attitude and the way he's trained, and he articulated that after the game, that I think it's a message to everybody in the squad that no matter who you are, no matter how far you feel out of the picture, if you train well, you will get your reward. And I think it's not only is this a boost to Caden, but it's probably a boost to a lot of players that the depth is ridiculous. In that second half in front of us, we saw Chaplin, Selina, Bon, Piggott, Kyle Edwards all warming up in front of us. And you're thinking, you almost feel sorry for Wimbledon, in terms of the options that they've got to come on. So I'm sure there are some, if not angry players, certainly some sort of frustrated players. You get the feeling there's a really good team spirit and they're all pulling together, but there'll be some players that are quietly frustrated that good players haven't come here to sit on the bench. And I think this is really good man management from McKenna to almost sort of make a point to everyone, not just Jackson. And what it will mean for Caden going forwards, I don't know. We're getting close to the end of the window. You would suggest that, he quite likes him, and he's a different type of attribute in terms of his pace. He's a different option for them. And I thought he did all right, actually. There were still some moments where there was a bit of a loose touch and things that we've seen from Caden before, but also all the good stuff that we remember as well. He ran really hard. He charged people down. The club put out a tweet about his high intensity number of sort of yards run and everything like that. He flashed a few crosses across the box, had his involvement with the goal. So maybe, certainly for the second half of this season, he's got a role to play. Then what happens from the summer onwards, I don't know.
Actually, in terms of that depth, I'm reminded of a great story. Basketball-wise, you'll like this. Back in the day, a player called Charlie Ward won the Heisman Trophy as a quarterback, chose to play basketball, played for the New York Knicks, who, of course, their great rival was the Chicago Bulls. He was once guarded during a game by the greatest Michael Jordan for most of the game. And when Jordan switched off him, Scottie Pippen took him, who, if you know anything about basketball, Scottie Pippen, also like Jordan, one of the greatest defenders in the game's history. And to me, and this is a comparison that's never been made before, but I was moved to recall that when Selina and Chaplin come off the bench on the 70th minute at AFC Wimbledon. It's almost unfair, isn't it? the end to that story is that Charlie Ward started crying when Pippin picked him up. He was like, "This is just not fair." And it's similar, isn't it? I mean, you shouldn't be able to bring players like Selena and Chaplin off the bench in League One. That shouldn't be allowed.
I didn't see any tears from AFC Wimbledon, but no, you make a good point. They're different players to the players they replaced with in that front three, and both of them would have been unhappy to have been dropped to the bench, I think, after the win against Accrington at the weekend. But yeah, there are options galore. It means slightly different approaches, depending on which one of them is on the pitch, which is good as well, because it changes that challenge a little bit and can add a little bit of a new dimension. You can tell at the moment, whenever Selena's on the pitch, I think he always plays like this, but particularly at the moment, it's ramped up a bit that he's looking to do something. He is looking to make an impact whenever he gets on the ball, and that's the kind of Bersant Selena that you want. Actually, maybe during his first spell, we talked about him being a bit of a super sub, didn't we? And it was a tag he didn't particularly like, but it did get the moments out of him. It got something out of him under Mick McCarthy in that role. So maybe having him hungry at all times might be the best way to use Bersant Selena between now and the end of the season, rather than letting him coast through starts every single game.
And also, I think you made mention of it in Monday's show, Stewie. Obviously, we know Macaulay Bonne is Town's leading scorer, but now if you look behind him at the people coming up who are getting goals, you got Chaplin. I think Chaplin's on 8, is he? Burns is on 8. There's goals coming from a lot of different places, which is not something.
How often have we spoken about seasons going by where Ipswich have struggled to get a striker into double digits for goals, and now we're talking about a couple of sort of attacking midfielders / wingers hitting double figures. Spreading the goals around is great. If I'm being picky, I'd like to see a few more from defence now and again. There will be games where it doesn't necessarily happen for the forward players, and set pieces. I had quite a few at Wimbledon. Never felt like they were going to score from one, and that's been a bit of a theme for the season. We know that they're perhaps a little bit undersized. We talked about that after the Accrington game, but I'd like to see a little bit of an improvement from set pieces. If you look at Rotherham up there in the table and others, I know it's not their natural game, but just to chip in now and again, you might just need. There might be a day where you just need a set piece to drag you through. So there's improvements to be made there. Carroll's got the ability to whip her left footer in right underneath the crossbar. So I think they can get a little bit more joy on that if they maybe work on that a little bit.
That's interesting. I was going to ask you. I'm going to come to you, Rossi, to finish this segment because there's a big question I want to ask you before we move on. But Hutchie, obviously, since McKenna's come in, there's been a lot of sweetness and light and excitement, and rightly so. Things have been going well. But is there anything, Stu there just pointed out, you'd like to see improvement from set pieces? Is there anything that you've seen that maybe you think Town need to improve, or gives you any kind of pause for concern?
I'd agree on the set piece thing. Cause for concern, I would say no, not really. The worry I've got is they got through the game without Morsy on Tuesday night. They've got 3 more to get through now. Obviously, 2 of them are against Gillingham and Doncaster, who are teams they've scored 10 against already this season. So you'd like to think that that's not going to prove too much of an issue for them. But we were even talking about this from the summer onwards when Morsy was playing a different role. Who was his deputy? Because that's seven games he'll have missed through suspension for Ipswich now, beginning with the one that he had at the beginning. And I'm really enjoying watching him play at the moment. Under McKenna, I really like the role they've got him playing, and it shows different sides to him. But I'm not sure who can replace him in that role. And that's the thing that I think I've enjoyed the most under McKenna, is watching the bit more drive from midfield. And I think that's getting the best out of other players, because it's opening up runs for strikers. It's allowing Aluko, who's played as kind of a number 10 at times, is allowing Aluko to find pockets because Morsy's driving into space and occupying people. It's allowing the wingers to get up and get an overload because Morsy's moving the play up with the ball at his feet. And I just worry, not just through this suspension, but if he misses more time, which isn't impossible with injuries and things, whether they've got someone that can replace him in that role. That's a worry. But in general, I'm just really enjoying what I'm seeing. It's building. I like the solidity, and I think there's enough creative talent in the team to find a way to score goals. So I'm not sitting here feeling particularly concerned, if I'm honest.
I love the way you. I think it was the way you started, or at least part of the video post game on Tuesday night. You kind of looked at Stu in a kind of sheepish, kind of whisper it quietly sort of way, and went, starting to build something like momentum here. This is not something that we're used to.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're also used to false dawns and
Yeah.
one step forward, two steps back, that you're reluctant to kind of invest in this a little bit. But Tuesday felt like a significant landmark. We'd seen earlier in the season where they'd gone win-win, defeat at Plymouth, bounce back with a win. And then I can't remember what the next result was after that, but it stopped again. So this is another little hurdle that they've just gone beyond now. Kieran McKenna's won back-to-back games twice. Paul Cook managed that once in his entire time at Ipswich, and McKenna's done it twice already within a few weeks. So it just feels like they're just new ground is being sort of new barriers are sort of being crossed week by week at the moment. You know, can they come from behind? Yes. How will they react in they're answering lots of different questions along the way, and I think that gives you a go-to for the players in within games. What happens if this, situation X unfolds? And similar themes kept unraveling under Cook, didn't they? When we go in front, we'll lose it, and it becomes like a psychological block. And then we're now getting these little psychological boosts that yes, we can come from behind. What happens when we play someone physical? Yeah, we can deal with it. So it's quietly things are starting to build, but we have to kind of temper our enthusiasm for now. I think Saturday would be a major point if they can navigate this game.
Can we dust off, Stu? In the great Watson anthology of terms, you used, I think it was quiet revolution. Was that under Mick McCarthy? I can't remember when that period that was, but could we maybe dust the cobwebs off that and bring that back? Quiet revolution under Kieran McKenna?
Quite possibly, yeah. I guess that was sort of circumstances were a little bit different. That was when things were starting to come together under Mick McCarthy, that Ipswich were doing it on a budget, and they were doing it in probably an understated, unfashionable way. Whereas we've just talked about the depth and the money that Ipswich has spent. So I think there'll be more eyes on this revolution if it starts to gather pace in the way that we hope it will. But yeah, I can see the comparison of a feeling. Sometimes you just get that sort of gut feeling that something special is starting to come together. I think it may be a little bit early still for that conversation to be happening just yet. But it's nice to feel positive, isn't it?
I'd take the word special out of that. I'd say we can add special in a few weeks. I'd say something. It feels like something's coming together.
Yeah.
Maybe give it a few more weeks and we'll chuck special back in.
And there's certainly a bond between touchline and terrace, isn't there, Stewie? Trademark Stuart Watson. And the man who captures that bond between touchline and terrace better than anyone else is, of course, Roscoe in your game day videos, Rossi. But going back a few weeks now, I forget the date. I think it was late December, early January, around that sort of time. You sat there in that very chair and you looked us all dead in the eye and said, this season is dead. Call it off now. Stick a fork in it. It's done. How are you feeling about that now? Town are 5 points off the playoffs. Yes, it's still they still have got, obviously they've played more games than most of the sides above them. But how are you feeling now when Town have won 4 out of the last 5 games? You've got a new manager who might be the greatest manager of all time. How are you feeling about that prediction, that statement, that bold opining?
I have an announcement to make. I have a twin, and he's very negative. No, I'm going to keep to it because I can't go back, can I? Of course, at that time, Paul Cook was still in charge, or he'd just been sacked. I think I said it after the Barrow 0-0. No, the Barrow lost in the FA Cup. I think that's when I said it, and I just thought, how are we going to get out of this mess? Even if we get in the whatever manager, the Messiah, whatever manager, and of course, Kieran McKenna came in, and when he came in, I thought, oh, this is a risk. And I was like, okay, no, season's still dead, but they're proving me wrong. This team, this squad. Where's Burns? Burns, you're tearing our heart away, however it goes. I should know really. 'Cause I filmed
You
it last
recorded.
night.
You recorded the clip. We put it
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, I think it's Burns. Burns will tear you apart again, and it's like
Yes,
that,
that's
like
it. Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
There it is. But no, yeah, I'm sure it's going to be brought up for a very long time, until we do eventually maybe fall apart and the season will be dead again. But no, it's good that fans are and the players are together again, because after the Charlton game, the last time we were in London, dearie me, that was a mess.
Mm.
But thankfully, back at the capital, fans and the players all together, loving it. And yeah, that song was sung while they left, and yeah, 2-0 to the Tractor Boys, and a lot of Happy Town fans left that ground thinking, something's happening here. Something is happening.
But you don't think anything's happening. You think the season's still dead.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, I've got to stick with it. At the end of the day, I don't want to be going to games and thinking, "Oh, this is pointless." We're not going to get the playoffs. I have that little hope there. Come on, Town. We just don't, break our hearts again, because that's what always happens. That's the hope that kills you.
Of course, one of those players who's proven you wrong and won't now be able to play for the next couple of games is Sam Morsy. We know Roscoe. He's particularly keen to prove you wrong. Because of that very proclamation, the season's dead. He's taken that on and wants to prove you wrong, but unfortunately he's not going to be around for the next few games. And clearly we've got to talk about that. I have quite a lot to say about this, boys, so I don't know if you just indulge me for a minute or so from the incident on Saturday. But for me, this whole thing encapsulates what I hate about football more than anything, and it makes me turn off games. Number one, you've got the incident itself, which was described as a shove stroke punch. I know that wasn't a punch. I don't even need to see the incident to know that wasn't a punch. Sam Morsy, described by Andy Holt as a shithouse. He's right there. He's a shithouse. He's a brick shithouse.
He's our shithouse.
If Sam Morsy punches someone in the face, all I need to do to know that was a punch is look at the guy's face. Ethan Hamilton, after the game, he didn't have a black eye, he didn't have a broken nose, he didn't have a busted cheekbone. That was not a punch, number one. Not a punch. At best, or at worst, in this scenario, it was a shove to the face. A rugby style, American football style, handoff, stiff arm, whatever you call it. Not a punch, number one. Number two is the reaction, which is part of the culture of football. I know that whenever anyone makes contact with your face, you fall over and grab it as if you've been shot. What is wrong with people? Why do they do that? I'm not having to go at Ethan Hamilton here, because I know he said he's come out afterwards and said, I'm an honest player. But when did it become acceptable to react like that on a football pitch? Like if you move that incident about 100 yards this way off the pitch and onto Portman Road, and Sam Morsy pushes Ethan Hamilton in the face, he doesn't roll around on the floor. He stays on his feet, doesn't he? Like a normal person would, and probably goes back at him. So when did that become part of the culture of football? I know it's not as bad in League One, and it's worse in the Premier League. It's a lot worse in the Premier League. But that, for me, that makes me so angry. And number three, Accrington Stanley. I wasn't at the game, but I know from listening to the podcast on Monday, they were giving it out during the game. What was the worst thing that could be said about you at school when you were a kid? When you were bantering with your friends, the worst thing that someone could brand you was you could give it out, but you can't take it. Accrington Stanley can give it out, but they can't take it. I thought that was appalling, I've got to say. The moaning after the game about such a petty, minor incident. To use a phrase from the IT Crowd, name of a show, are we not men? What are we doing here? This is a complete joke. This is ruining the sport of football, this sort of thing. And it's making me turn off, and it's making loads of other people turn off as well. Anyway, that's me done there, boys.
Yeah. Well done. I think you'll that's a rousing speech that I think you'll have people nodding along. I haven't got a lot to add to that. Why has it got to this stage? Because if you don't go down, you don't get free kicks, you don't get penalties, and football has had its opportunity over the years to stop that, and it hasn't. So I think clubs and players have got to a stage where what do you do if you don't go down? You don't get a key incident. What is your manager going to say to you? And the stakes are so high at whatever level now. everybody is looking for marginal gains in the game, and unfortunately, it's forced people towards the very edge of what we would describe as competitiveness, bordering into cheating, and that's where we're at, isn't it? And unfortunately, the decision on this one now just gives the green light for others to do the same, doesn't it?
You get rewarded for it. It's more than not getting punished. You get rewarded for it. That's, to me, that's totally wrong. And it's obviously there's sliding scales. This is kind of something that really winds me up, is whenever people get touched in the face, they have to go down and hold their face. Ridiculous reaction, but also, the kind of almost lauded, or he's made the defender have a nip and he's fallen over his leg, that kind of thing, which is praised as excellent play. That also winds me up, because that's still, stay on your feet. For me anyway, stay on your feet. Hutchie, any thoughts on this before I spontaneously combust?
No, other than just I want to hear more from you, please. But I could have understood it if the decision I wouldn't have agreed with it, I don't think, but I'd have understood it if he'd been sent off for it, if that makes sense. Where it's happened,
if Ethan Hamilton's broken his nose or he's got a fractured eye socket, absolutely throw the book at him. He's not. He was back on his feet giving interviews after the game. Ridiculous.
Yeah. But look, Sam Morsy's hand made contact with Ethan Hamilton's face. It wasn't a punch. It was a push. But if one of the officials, one of whom should definitely have seen it, because it was about 15 yards in front of him, if they'd seen it and had judged it to be sort of hands to the face and sent him off, I think I'd have understood it. But on the evidence that was available, and to then go back.
If you wanted to go retrospectively through any 90 minutes of football, you could probably find about 20 red cards in every game, if that's the threshold now for
pushing at corners. Like, you have people push each other, grapple each other, push each other in the face at things at corners. Yeah. That gets the referees kind of like that, and then go back to the corner, please. But to go back and retrospectively ban him, and it's 4 games because he's been sent off already this season and picked up a load of cards as well. That's not kind of because they've viewed it as being an incredibly dangerous incident. It wasn't. But to suspend someone for 4 games based on that incident when it's not been seen by the officials is just wrong, isn't it? It's not great. And like Stu says, that's a precedent that's set now. That what should Ipswich? Does Mark Ashton need to make a Twitter? Does Brett Johnson need to get on his Twitter next time someone pushes an Ipswich player and call them whatever he wants to call them and push for a ban? It's not great. It's really not great. And Ipswich are going to be without a really influential player as a result for until the middle of next month, which is crazy, really.
And that's the real kick in the teeth, isn't it? Because now, as you say, Town are starting to build something, and now they've got to do it without one of their most influential, inspirational players, their captain, for a complete nonsense, a nothing of an incident. Rossi, tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You are right, my friend. And I've got some evidence here. It's a picture from Tuesday night, and I think this man may have been punched. Look at his eye. Look at his eye. On video, people can see it, but yeah.
Was it Sam Morsy?
Yeah,
possibly.
But that's what I mean. If someone's punched, that's generally what their face looks like, especially if someone's punched by someone as big and powerful as Sam Morsy. They have damage on their face.
That's George Edmondson with a massive shiner for those that are listening on audio only. That's come out a treat, hasn't it? That was suffered during the Accrington game. It's a big old shiner.
That's how.
Can we talk about Andy Holt's statement in response to all of this?
Go for it. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, the apology was great as well, wasn't it?
Was it an apology?
Well, he said he apologized. He apologized for any offence caused, but very clearly still believes what he said was correct about Sam Morsy. He said he really hopes that he doesn't do it again, but he can't make any promises, and that's how he rolls.
I love that payoff line.
Do you know what it reminded me of was the Mick McCarthy apology after the fuck off gesture towards the fans, where he was obviously when you get told that it's probably a good look if we do an apology after this, and through very, very gritted teeth you put out sorry, not sorry. Sorry you were offended apology.
Yeah.
But I'm not really sorry.
What it does mean, of course, is next time, because Accrington Stanley had already become something of a bogey team, haven't they, for Town? And this kind of ramps it up for next time they meet, I think, that kind of bit of spice.
They're the new Wolf now of League One. We use the analogy. I don't know how we got onto this the other week, but League One teams as members of Gladiators, and we decided that the pantomime villain of Wolf was Wickham. I think we decided, didn't we?
Yeah.
They've been doubled this season. That's done, and Accrington take up the mantle now.
Who did you decide was the shadow, by the way? The one on absolutely shitloads of gear?
Allegedly.
No,
I don't think it is a legend. I don't think it was.
No, definitely.
Okay.
He had yellow eyes, for God's sake. He was on all
unbeatable on the duel thing.
Yeah.
You will not win.
I don't think that's an accusation that we should be levelling at any club.
Did you decide on a jet?
Easy on the eye.
Absolutely.
I think this needs more thought, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on. Think on that, Watson.
We'll use the car journey to Sheffield to come back.
Yeah.
We'll come back to you next week with a full list.
I want a full list of the original gladiators. Yeah. And move on to someone who probably could have been a gladiator given his physical build. Tyree Simpson, recalled. I think we knew that earlier this week, didn't we? Sunday. So you talked about it on Monday's show. We didn't really know why. And after the game, Stu, you spoke to Kieran McKenna and he gave a bit of an update, which again was kind of baffling. Do you want to bring us up to speed on that?
Still leaves a few more questions than answers. Probably he just sort of vaguely said it's a contractual issue. It wasn't my decision to bring him back, but it's a contractual issue, and hopefully that will get resolved in the next few days, and then we'll look at potentially loaning him out again. Whether that is back to Swindon or elsewhere, I don't know, but it seems a bit of a strange one. He's out of contract in the summer as it stands. Ipswich have the option to extend that to take the 12-month extension option. Clearly his form in the opening half of the season, 11 goals for promotion chasing Swindon in League Two, has led to Ipswich wanting to tie him down to a longer deal. Clearly, reading between the lines, that has been difficult to kind of finish those negotiations. And I don't think it's a big stretch to say that they've kind of recalled him to put a bit of pressure on getting that contract signed, which I don't think is a great look for me, to be honest. You can tell from Simpson's statement how gutted he is to have been brought back. It doesn't look great from the evidence we've got so far. We don't know the full picture, it's fair to say.
Really, though, if you're loaning younger players out, you would maybe, maybe it was different in the summer. Getting contracts done maybe wasn't top of the agenda, given that a whole new squad needed to be built. But you want the contract sorted before you loan them out. I know Simpson's form has probably changed everybody's thoughts about the whole situation, but really the clean way of doing it is making sure the contract is sort of all in place. And then loan them out if you're loaning them out with a view to coming back. Maybe they weren't. Maybe he was being loaned out with a view to that being the end for him at Ipswich at that point, and then he's gone. And by all accounts, a lot of the Swindon people I still speak to say the improvement that he has made there has been like outstanding. The level of improvement that he's managed to make in his game in 6 months. So maybe the game just has completely changed for them all. But I just think it will be from this point on, if he's not playing regular football somewhere between now and the end of the season, I think that's a bit of a travesty, really, because he's had phenomenal improvement and growth in the first half of the season, and for that not to be able to continue would be a real shame. For me, I really hope they can get him back to Swindon and he can just carry on improving and come back in the summer and see what he can do then.
Rossi, you did a video, didn't you, of course, with BBC Wiltshire, was it? Commentator, journalist, talking about Tyree Simpson, which is a good watch if you want to get a bit of insight into how much he's improved. It was saying exactly in this scenario, the guy said that if he was recalled, Swindon would be gutted.
Yeah, I think a lot of their fans be thinking we just lost to man who scored 11 goals for us, and course, when I saw the news, I was a bit baffled. But then I sort of went, maybe McKenna just wants to have a little look at him. That's what a lot of fans were saying after we recorded our pod on Monday. And I was thinking, oh yeah, we should have maybe said that. Maybe McKenna wants to have a little look. He's not had a chance to look at. I'm sure he can look at his stats and everything. But yeah, as Andy said, I don't want him here and he's just going to sit on the bench and play under 23s. You want him to be playing at least League Two, and if there's a League One club, Wimbledon haven't got a striker. Maybe that's a good place for him to go. Of course, can be fighting a relegation battle, but they need a striker.
He's not going to get on the bench, though, is he? That's the issue. With Caden Jackson just started a game on Tuesday night. We've talked about the options and the depth in the attacking options. He's not going to get minutes here. As good as his development has been in the first half of the season, I think everyone got a bit carried away thinking he was suddenly going to come back and play a major role for Ipswich this season. So, yeah, hopefully this all gets resolved in the right way for all parties.
Obviously, we're talking about transfer stuff, so let's continue. This is the last pod before transfer deadline day and the window slamming shut at 11 p.m. on Monday night. So let's have a little chat about sexy stuff, shall we, boys? Is there anything to discuss? We should say. I've got to say, by the way, when we started this chat at the start of January, and I said if Town do nothing else other than sign Christian Walton and keep Macaulay Bond here for the rest of the season, that's a pretty good window. They've done both of those things. We've talked about the left-sided need, which no doubt you might be about to talk about, and they've also added a midfielder into the mix as well. So things are going not too badly at all. Hutchie, Stewie, one of you want to kick us off here on sexy stuff and what you'd expect or might happen over the next few days before that window slams shut?
I still think the left side is one that I'd be looking at. Obviously, Kane Vincent Young can't play at the weekend. It's only a one game ban for his red card the other night, but that's still a position I'd potentially be looking at. And if they're going to add something between now and Monday, that would be top of the list for me. But I think outgoings is probably the more likely in the next few days in terms of numbers. I think there'll be more goings than comings at Ipswich between now and the deadline.
Scott Fraser was linked. Daily Record shared a story earlier this week linking him with a move to Swansea, which is not the first time that's been made. I think they reported that earlier in December as well. 6-figure sum. Russell Martin looking to bring him to Swansea City. Scott Fraser's not played since that rather lamentable display in the first half at Barrow in the FA Cup. Scott Fraser, Stewie, is he someone that it's just not really worked out for? Can you see him moving on?
Possibly. You can see certain boxes being ticked here with Martin. The fact that Ipswich just haven't found a place for him, and the way that they're playing at the moment. Again, it's hard to see where he fits in. It would be a real shame because he's a very good football player, and we've seen flashes of that at times. But sometimes your pathway feels like, we were talking about this on the journey back, that sometimes I think those first 10 games at a football club really kind of sets you on a certain path in terms of your reputation amongst fans, how you feel about the fit of the club. And Scott Fraser hasn't got off on that right pathway, and it just feels like it's heading a certain way. And if Ipswich, there's a get out here, if Ipswich feel that they can make their money back, or the best part of their money back, and that will provide Kieran McKenna with a bit of leeway in the summer to do something that he wants to do, maybe that's something that they'll look at. It's important to say he's missed the last couple of games through what the club say has been sort of a minor knee injury, but wouldn't shock me, this one.
Anything else you're expecting, liking, hoping will happen to you?
Well, McKenna asked after the game on Tuesday, Kieran said that there was still one or two we are speaking to. It's not impossible that there'll be an addition before the end of January. He's comfortable with what we have. It's a good squad. We've got cover for most positions, but if we can find that extra little bit of quality or extra little bit of something different, then we'll do it. So, watch this space, I guess. The obvious one is that left side, as Andy says, Vincent Young now suspended for Saturday, which is a real shame. His stop-start season continues. Will it be Matt Penny that returns to face his former club? He's missed a couple of games, which I think is a slight hamstring niggle. Hayden Coulson, he said, is back in training. I think that would be a massive ask for him to suddenly parachute into the starting 11, having been out for so long. Carl Edwards is another option down the left-hand side. So there are bodies there, but I still think that would be an area of the squad that they might like to do something with, you would imagine. Centre half as well, as of course, is, if they, as well as that back three's playing at the moment, you've got Cameron Burgess backing them up, and that's it really. So might be that they look for another player at centre half.
Okay, we shall see. Obviously, that deadline is on Monday. I doubt we'll record a pod until now after it's slammed shut. Excuse me. So either Monday night, Tuesday morning. We may reprise the late night podcast. Hutchie, do you remember that when I was on the whiskey after the first first that summer transfer window like no other, 11:30 at night. Anyway, before we move on to Sheffield Wednesday, which is a massive game, Hutchie, let's do as we always have to do and play. What's Hutchie's kit of the week? Have your right hand shoulder.
I'm not going to move my shoulder because you're going to guess it from what it is. For audio listeners, it's a slightly orangey gold and maroon halved kit, and I'm going to reveal little bits as we go.
It's obviously a European kit, isn't it? Because you say that you don't really have English kits. Is it a European kit we're talking?
It's a European. Well, yeah, it's a European kit.
I've got a guess.
Go on.
Go on. You guys go for you. Have you got any takers?
Absolutely no idea.
Galatasaray.
That's what I was going to say.
Oh.
Bang!
Oh, nice.
Stuart Watson. There we go.
Galatasaray.
Superb. Any progress on getting that much sought after, not available for purchase black away kit, Hutchie?
Nope, they're going to wear it on Saturday, though, aren't they? So,
well, there we go.
If there's a pitch invader at the end of the game, I'll take my little sign.
Just wrestling.
Janoy, can I have your shirt? And a little big cardboard sign from the.
He's your target, is he? You've decided he's the one that couldn't say no.
Yeah, I think he's potentially the target.
Is Sheffield Wednesday not where you got into the dressing room that time? I remember you did a post-match video in a dressing room one game. Was that not Sheffield Wednesday?
Might have been. We're not allowed anywhere near that kind of thing anymore.
Okay.
But,
COVID.
Yeah. Stuart Watson ate one of Paul Warren's sandwiches once. And you ate his old sandwich, didn't you, off the desk in his office at Rotherham? That was good.
Mind sweeping the leftovers.
I love that. I'm not sure maybe we've been in the Hillsborough dressing room, but we won't. I doubt we'll be getting anywhere near that this time.
Rossi, can't you work your contacts? You and your boy Macaulay Bond, he could get him. You could get Hutchie a shirt, couldn't you?
We may have to wait until the end of the season because I'm sure they still need to use them. Yeah.
They're under lock and key. They've only got 100 of them.
Only got 100 of them. Wow. Yeah. That's the mission towards the end of the season now, is to get Hutchie one of these shirts. Anyway, the mission on Saturday is, of course, Sheffield Wednesday away. Stuart Watson, I'm about to make it's not really a bold statement, it's just a statement. This is the biggest game of the Kieran McKenna era so far. Agree, disagree?
It's the biggest game because it's the next game.
Hey, there we go. Cliches all around. The biggest game since the last game.
I don't know. You could argue the first game was the biggest game because that kind of set the tone for everything that followed. But
it's a big game. Can we agree on that?
Ipswich away at Hillsborough in League One. Both of them challenging for the top six. They've got a couple of games in hand. Ipswich leapfrogged them at the weekend. Of course, it's a big game. Of course, it is. I think the win on Tuesday night means that you can go into this not with the attitude that you want to go and get a draw, but I think a draw would be acceptable because you've then got, as Andy mentioned earlier, the bottom two to follow in Gillingham and Doncaster. So, yeah, looking forward to it. I mean, they're not in red hot form themselves. Sheffield Wednesday, they lost to Oxford 3-2 at the weekend. They beat Plymouth before that, but they've lost to Shrewsbury. They got battered 5-0 by Sunderland before that. So 3 defeats from their last 4, slipping a little bit. I think everyone can go there just really looking forward to a big away day at Hillsborough, and we'll see what it brings.
Hutchie, this is a game that Town, it's important for them because obviously Sheffield Wednesday are immediately beneath them. So you want to ideally beat sides like that, but you don't want to lose to sides like Sheffield Wednesday in terms of the league position.
Yeah, that's the big thing. Don't lose it. They've done well to get above them, which means obviously a draw would keep them above them. You're getting to the point where you can't be losing the rematches with teams like Oxford, Plymouth, the teams that you need to jump above to get into those positions. They're the big ones now. But you have to keep doing the business in the games with Gillingham, Doncaster as well, because if you drops what we might view as silly points in those games, you put even more pressure on yourself on these bigger games. So, if I'll be very happy with a draw. Come away from Hillsborough with a draw. I'll be very, very, very happy with that.
And Rossi, your boy Bon, he was rested on Tuesday night. Surely he was rested for this very reason, isn't he? To go balls out at Hillsborough.
I don't know. You know, I think Norwood still has a case to start, but maybe he was rested. I don't know.
He's been practicing just stalking goalkeepers all week, just to repeat his trick against Bailey Peacock Farrell, who I imagine is going to maybe have a couple of wing mirrors on his shoulders going into this game. There's no way that happens again, but I get the feeling that the Bon Norwood starters for those two games was predetermined ahead of that weekend, that McKenna almost announced his, you start this game, you start that game. I could tell that from Bon's reaction when he came off against Atkinson, that now I've got to wait. Now I've got to wait a week for my next game. But Norwood, good assist at the weekend. His overall game wasn't at its peak. He struggled to make the ball stick, didn't he, for a lot of the game. So I would imagine that Bon comes back in as certainly the central striker for this one. Whether Norwood plays as well and they go for the Bash brothers at Hillsborough and they decide that they need to go for that sort of more physical tactic, I don't know.
I'm going to say we were lauding the Bash brothers not too long ago. Is that now not a thing?
Horses for courses, I think.
Right.
I'm sure we will see it again.
What would you do with the side, Hutchie? Obviously, we know Morsy can't play, but other than KVY, what would you do with it?
I'd have Bon would be straight back in for me. I think I'd probably bring Bon and Chaplin in for Jackson and Norwood in that front three. I'd be actually tempted to make the whole three change again with Selena in for who am I talking? Aluko, but I like Aluko as well. I'm happy with that. So I'd bring Bon and Chaplin into the side. I would hope that Lee Evans would be available. If Lee Evans is available, I'd have him straight back in as well. And the left side is, I imagine it'll probably be Matt Penny back in on the left side. But we'll see about that one. But yeah, that would be probably about all I'd do, to be honest. I'm not tinkering with the back three, certainly. Wes Burns clearly isn't coming out of that side. And I imagine Backinson will probably Backinson and Evans if that was available.
I was going to say, Stu, we talked in terms of the Morsy replacement. We talked earlier this season about the closest, if you like, to Morsy being Idris El Mazouni. Is there any argument that you bring him in this game? Backinson and Carroll, if Evans isn't available, we said maybe a bit lightweight for a game like this.
Ordinarily, I would have said yes, but the fact that he wasn't on the bench on Tuesday night suggests that's not in McKenna's thoughts. I was a little bit surprised to see that there wasn't a central midfielder on the bench, given Carroll and Backinson's kind of lack of game time. But they came through the game. You hope that they will do so again. There is obviously always a fear that Carroll could get injured at any moment, given his history of that in recent years. But yeah, for me, as we said before, getting through the game at Plough Lane without Morsy is one thing. Doing it at Hillsborough is another. Massimo Luongo, who Ipswich fans will remember from his loan spell many years ago, he's had real injury ups and downs himself, but when he's fit, he's their best player by all accounts, and he has been fit for the last couple of games and has been getting some rave reviews. Barry Bannon, we know all about. I think he's getting on, in terms of years now, but is still a very, very good player at this level. So it's a tougher task for the Ipswich Town midfield on Saturday. I would go as far as saying this is where this game could be won and lost.
Okay. something else you did in your 3-game spell as interim boss, Stewie, which I applauded, was bring back £1 million picks, which is a feature that I'd totally forgotten about. Not because I didn't like it, but because it just kind of faded away at some point when Hutchie went on holiday in December, we established earlier. And now it's back. I want to keep it going. Hutchie, of course, does have an advantage in that he knows if Town are going to win or lose purely by what he's going to wear on his feet. So what are you going for this week, Hutchie?
It came back with a win as well. I had it Town to score in both halves of the Accrington game, which they did. So that came back with a win. Takes the pot up to £925,000. We're getting close to being back to where we started, which isn't a particularly great look because the idea was to win.
Well, to be fair, you were winning until Watson spunked half of it on a bet when you were off the first time.
Joke. Anyway,
you also did say, Andy, that another part of your bet was on Sam Morsy to score, and you said you were going to keep backing that in every game going forwards. I assume you might have to pause that now.
I mean, that wouldn't be particularly good betting, would it?
No.
To put £50,000, knowing that he's not available. But once he's back, I'll keep putting that on. I'm going very, very simple this time. I'm going to ride the wave. Wes Burns to score the first goal, 25 grand, 9-1. Just ride the wave.
Burns, so just a goal bet, no outcome.
Very simple.
First goal.
All right. That leaves me then to ask Rossi what the score is going to be. What's going to happen at Hillsborough on Saturday? 1-1.
1-1.
1-1 draw, and that would be a decent result, wouldn't it, Rossi?
Yeah, I'll be happy about that. I'm looking forward to going to Hillsborough again. It's been a couple of seasons since we last went. Good memories going there. A few late winners. Luke Chambers, one of them. I think it was 2-1 the scoreline. But no, I think a point will be good. Some fans will be shouting, going, "No, we're 4 wins out of 5 on McKenna. We're going to win every game." But no, I think they've got a good home record. Only 1 defeat at home, which was against Oxford in October. And so their home form is good. And so sometimes when you go to these bigger stadiums, sometimes it can be a bit different. When we went to Bolton, we lost against Bolton. But when we go to a place like Wimbledon, well, actually, when we go to Accrington, we lose there all the time. But no, I think a point will be good. And 1-1 probably be a good scoreline. We're assured at the back, but I don't see us getting a clean sheet in this one. So 1-1 for me.
Someone's been doing their research, Rossi. Very impressive. Is that ahead of doing recording Meet the Opposition?
Pretty much.
Excellent. Look out for that. That is great, by the way. I love Meet the Opposition every week. A little insight into the side that Town are playing. So Rossi's saying 1-1. Stewie, what are you going to say?
I've also said 1-1. Ross and I were agreed on a 2-0 win in midweek. That came off. A draw. That home record does jump off the page for Sheffield Wednesday. I think they've been playing away a lot recently, but their home form's been really good. It's a tough place to go. I take a point and then keep things rolling going into those 2 games against Gillingham and Doncaster. And
Hutchie, of course, as part of your prediction, we kind of need to know: have you made a decision yet? You said before that in terms of driving, the lucky shoes are not best suited. They're a little bit rigid. So have you made a decision yet as to what
I will drive us.
Yeah.
I will drive us to and from Hillsborough. Okay.
I can't not wear them. Look, I think if they do get a draw, I think the shoes have done their job, if I'm honest. But you know what? I've also got 1-1 written down to complete the set, and I'm going to change my £1 million picks. I'll chuck that in with Wes Burns, put it in together. Wes Burns first scorer, ends 1-1, same 25 grand, but that will win 1.6 million. So, and then I'm off. That's me done. So
sorry, that single bet will net 1.6 million if it comes in.
£25,000 on Wes Burns to score first in a 1-1 draw will win 1,619,955 pounds to be exact.
I'm off to bet a chunk of the Heath estate on that very result then in that case. So you're saying 1-1, I'm saying 7-0 Town. Boys, any other business before we take our leave this week? I think, as I say, this is probably going to be the last pod before the window closes. It doesn't really make sense to do one on Monday before it shuts, so we'll probably be back either Monday night or Tuesday, I would suggest. Rossi, the ladies played again last night, didn't they?
Yeah, but I wasn't there.
Oh,
So
okay.
they drew 0-0.
They drew 0-0. There we go. Hutchie, Stewie, anything else to mention?
No other business.
No other business.
Stu, you don't want to push Manscaped?
No, that's your job now. That the huge weight of that responsibility on my shoulders has been lifted.
Yeah.
Yeah, you stitched me up a good one.
Well, all that leaves me to say then is to please do support our sponsor, Manscaped. Use the code KOA at manscaped.com for 20% off and free delivery on all their excellent clobber. I myself was using the Weed Whacker this morning, Hutchie. It's come to something that sort of age. Get the Weed Whacker out at least once a week. It is tremendous. There we go. Hutchie's just having a little trim up on camera. There we go. What a product.
That is the nose product, just to clarify.
Yeah. Oh, I see what you mean there, Stu. Yeah, that would have been God, painting pictures there for the audio listeners. Hutchie having a trim up on camera. Please leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, because that helps us greatly with the visibility in the iTunes charts, helps more people discover us, and also follow us across all our social medias, Kings of Anglia on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and the Facebooks. We will be back next week. If you're going to Sheffield Wednesday this weekend, enjoy the game. Have a great weekend, whatever you're doing. And we'll speak to you again next time.